No way, not tonight, no way, not today. Just cause you
Would you care to dance?
don't think you got this fool tonight.
It's good.
Alright,
Oh, good.
don't ask me to stay.
Hey, what's going on? It's Dr. Ganswell Boogie here again, and in this video I was going to show my entire Friday the 13th DVD collection. I love the Friday the 13th horror series. It's probably my favorite horror franchise, especially the first 8 films, which I just love watching. I think those are probably my favorite horror movies to watch in general, are the first 8 Friday the 13th films. I usually watch them twice a year. I have a marathon around Halloween and also a marathon during the summertime of the first 8 Friday the 13th films. So I just always love watching those films. Some of my favorite horror movies ever. And I also love collecting them on DVD. And I have all of the Friday the 13th films on DVD and a couple like cool copies and multiple copies of some of the movies. But I actually don't have any of the box sets, so if you're expecting me to show, you know, one of the cool box sets off in this video, I don't have any right now. I used to have the From Crystal Lake to Manhattan box set, which I think is the best, because just like I said, the first 8 films I think are the best. So that's a cool box set that just has the first 8, and I used to have that back when it first came out, but I ended up selling it or doing something like that for one reason or another. So that's definitely a set I want to try to buy back at one point, but I have a good amount of copies of the Friday the 13th films anyways, so I'm just going to start going through these. First up here I have, of course, Friday the 13th, and you know, I'm sure most people have seen the Friday the 13th film, so I'm not going to go too deep into the stories or the plot points or anything like that of each one, but I'll just probably talk a little about each one. And the first Friday the 13th film is classic. This is the uncut edition of the movie, which comes with like 10 seconds of like extra gore that was like cut out for the theatrical cut, which is really cool. It's got a couple decent special features on here, but nothing too great. I was actually hoping they would include the documentaries from the Crystal Lake to Manhattan box set on these somehow, so I was a little disappointed they didn't do that. But pretty cool. Anyways, I would say the main reason to get this one is just because this is the uncut version of the movie. I'm actually not the biggest fan of this artwork or anything like that, but it's the only way you can get the uncut film on DVD from what I know, other than maybe one of the newer box sets. And then of course, Friday the 13th Part 2, which this is the first one to feature Jason as the killer. So basically the rest of the films in the franchise, especially the next 6, like Part 3 through 8, like followed the formula this one started in a sense, but they all follow the basic formula of the first film anyways, but this one really set it up with Jason and all that. So this is really cool. I love what they did with this one, and I love watching this one. This is one of my favorites to watch, and I think one of the most iconic in the series, even though Jason doesn't have his hockey mask in this one. I still think this is one of the iconic ones in the series, especially the first 4 are probably the most iconic, the most like well remembered and all that. But really cool, and this is actually nothing special on this edition. It doesn't come with really anything extra except some bonus features in the trailer, you know, a couple short documentaries, which I watched and they were decent. Definitely not the best documentaries I've seen on the series. Like I said, I think the best documentaries I remember seeing on the series were the ones from the Crystal Lake to Manhattan box set. Then of course I have Friday the 13th Part 3, and I bought this one because it came with 3D glasses, and I've always wanted to see this in 3D. It's been a dream of mine ever since I was a lot younger, renting these movies. I always wanted to see it in 3D, so I went and picked this one up with the glasses and everything. And I was a little disappointed. I couldn't get the 3D to work good. I had all my lights off, and I had the glasses on, the movie running and everything, but it wasn't seeming, it didn't seem to work right. Maybe I should have let it play a little longer, but I watched it for like 10-15 minutes, and it was like starting to give me a headache, and it was hard for me to even really pay good attention. So I ended up just shutting it off and watching it normal, without the 3D glasses on, the normal print of the movie. So I'm going to have to give this one another shot one of these days and try to watch it in 3D again, because I think that would just be really fun. But I think this is one of the best in the series. Part 3 and Part 4 are my two favorites in the whole series. So I'd say this is probably the one to buy on DVD, not for the artwork or anything like that, but just for the fact that you could watch it in 3D. I think you might have to have a right type of TV. I have like an older TV, so it didn't really seem to be working too good for me. But again, like I said, I'll try to give it one more shot. Get the 3D working. And then here's a double feature I have with Friday the 13th and Friday the 13th Part 2. And this is a really cool DVD 2-pack in my opinion. I've had this for a long time, probably like 5-6 years. And I remember buying this at Kmart, and I usually pass on these 2-packs like this, but I thought this one was interesting just because it came with the first disc from the Crystal Lake to Manhattan box set, which I just thought was kind of interesting how they just took the disc from that and repackaged it separately. I kind of wish they did that with Part 3 and 4 too. I think that would have made a really nice 2-pack. But this is a really nice 2-pack, and I would recommend this for someone trying to find, you know, the first 2 films for cheap. I'm pretty sure you can probably get this used on the internet for like a couple bucks. And, you know, you get both of the first 2 films, and I think they look cool too with the covers and the text from the poster and everything. I think it just looks nice. And next up here, I have Friday the 13th separate on DVD, and this is the older widescreen Paramount release, which I love these. I think these are the best looking Friday the 13th DVDs, packaging wise. They just look like what I would want a Friday the 13th DVD to look like. And again, just really nice. And this one came with a really nice slip cover, which I've been talking about it throughout this whole video, but I think this features the same hockey mask on the From Crystal Lake to Manhattan box set. So again, that is a box set that I definitely want to rebuy. It's just kind of pricey now. A lot of those box sets go up in price. Some of them go down in price after a while, so you know, maybe I'll just wait a little bit longer. But this is really cool. And then of course I have parts 3 and 4 like this too. I'm actually missing Part 2 like this, which is really sad, but eventually I'll pick that up. It's definitely on the top of my list for slasher movies I want to get, even though I already have a couple copies of it. But again, like I said, I really like these editions of Friday the 13th on DVD. I think they look really nice. I have the insert for this one, which is cool too. And then Friday the 13th Part 4, which is actually my favorite in the whole series. And I just think this one is just all around fun. The characters in these ones, like the campers or the friends who get killed off, I think are very fun and entertaining. Some of the best written, and some of the more, I would say some of the more entertaining characters that get killed off in the whole series. I mean, you have Crispin Glover in this movie, and his friend does a good job too. And then you also have Corey Feldman in this when he's a lot younger, but I think he did a good job anyway. So this is just one of the better Friday the 13th films in my opinion. Everything about this one is cool. Jason's look is like set and down by this one, and it looks really cool. It's very ghoulish when his mask is off, and when he's got his hockey mask on, I just love the way he looks. In my opinion, this is like the definitive look for Jason is in this film. This in Part 3, but this one is like the same as Part 3, just like a little bit more like beat up and dirty from all the events that took place in the third one. So I just think this is the best. And if you're looking to get into the Friday the 13th series, maybe you're younger or you just never felt like checking them out, I would say start out with this one. I mean, it's got Jason in it, it's got some cool characters in it, it's kind of funny. So, you know, I think this is probably one of the best in the series, if not the best. Alright, and this was actually called The Final Chapter, so the next one is part 5, A New Beginning, and I'm sure most people watching this know the 4th one was going to be the last in the series, but of course it made good money, so they figured they would make more sequels, which I'm glad they did, because that's another reason I like the Friday the 13th films, is the first 8 take place throughout the whole, like they were made throughout the whole 80s, so you really get a good idea of what like the early 80s was like, and then when you watch Friday all the way down to Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, it gives you a good idea of how the late 80s were like, so it's just really fun for me. Like, I love 80s movies and music, and it's just like, it's a good trip through the 80s to watch the whole Friday the 13th series. But yeah, this is part 5, and I actually like this one. This one has a reputation for not being that good for mostly one reason, because it has a copycat Jason in it, which may be spoilers for some, but I'm sure most people already know this. And so this one doesn't actually include the real Jason, because in part 4 he was killed off. So in this one, it's actually a guy who has his own like revenge issues and all that, so he uses the Jason gimmick to kind of cover up his murder spree that he's doing. So I like this one though. Again, like part 4, I think the people in this, the characters that get murdered off, the younger teens in it, I think are really fun and entertaining to watch, and it's just, I think it makes for a good movie, and I think it's a pretty fun story. Follows the basic Jason killing people, so it doesn't differ from part like 2 or 3 or 4. Like, Jason still has like the same abilities and the same powers, that he gets shot or stabbed or whatever, and he's still standing. So even though it is a copycat killer, you don't find that out to the end, and Jason's like abilities are the same. So in my opinion, the fact that Jason, the killer, is not actually Jason in this movie doesn't really affect as being in a good Friday the 13th movie. So in my opinion, this is probably the most underrated in the first 8 of the films, because I think this one is really good. It follows part 4 really well too. It just picks up basically with the storyline from that one, so I just think this one's good. And then also part 6, Jason Lives, I think is good, and as the title indicates, this one, Jason is back. Classic Jason, and this is just fun. They brought Jason back, and they didn't take this one fully serious, even though it is a scary, serious horror movie, but there's also some fun moments in this one too. And again, I would just highly suggest this one. I love the whole Friday the 13th series, and in my opinion, the first 8 really, they don't get worse. Like, I like the first 4 the best, but 4 through 8 are 5 through 8 are also really good and really fun to watch also. So it's just one of those horror series that I just think they're all really fun to watch. This one's really cool though. And these releases of these Friday the 13th films, I have part 5 like this too, and part 7 and 8. Yeah, these are alright. I wish they had releases that looked more like the other Paramount releases they did of the first 4 films like this. Like, I wish they released the whole series like this, but what are you gonna do, I guess. So that's Friday the 13th part 6, Jason Lives. And of course we have part 7, and out of all of the first 8, I would have to say this is probably my least favorite, just because I feel like it differs the most from the way the other films were. In this one, Jason battles a girl with like Carrie-like powers, so it just kind of adds something new to the story, but at the same way, I think it takes away certain things. And I don't know, there's something about this one, the characters in this movie, I was gonna say I'm not that big of a fan of. I don't really like too many of them at all. Not even the main character in this movie I really think is that good of a main character. So this is one of my least favorite ones when it comes to the actual characters, like the teens in the movie. I don't really like them in this movie, so watching them get murdered off like doesn't really have too much effect for me, sadly. But Jason, I've never been a huge fan of Jason's look in this movie. They like have him really beat up looking to show the effects from all the past movies. But I don't know, for some reason I don't really like that. I think he looks a little bit too beat up. You see too much like skeleton, and there's too much going on. I like kind of like the classic, more like simplistic design of Jason with the hockey mask and green shirt and gray pants. That works fine for me. So this is the only one that I would say I'm not 100% on. And also the music in this one, I don't feel like is as good as the music on some of the other ones. It's a little bit more like Nightmare on Elm Street, like the way it sounds. It has like that. It has like a similar vibe to the Nightmare on Elm Street soundtracks in this one. So you know, I still think this is a fun one to watch. But out of the first 8 films, I think this is probably my least favorite. And here is Jason Takes Manhattan, Friday the 13th Part 8. This is actually one of my favorites in the first 8, even though it would be really hard for me to actually put them in an order. But I love to watch this one, and this is one that I used to rent all the time when I was a kid. I think it had something to do with the artwork that was on the tape, which I actually have the VHS tape of that, and I just really love the artwork for the 8th one on tape, so I think that's why I always rented that. But this one I just think is really fun also. A lot of people complain that it doesn't really take place in New York. Most of this movie takes place on a boat, but I think that works for the whole Jason thing, because he's always in water and all that. I think this is one of the first Friday the 13th movies I've ever seen, and still one of my favorites to watch. And of course you got Jason Goes to Hell, which I actually think is the worst Friday the 13th movie ever. This one is just garbage, and I used to rent this one when I was a kid too, but this one has surprisingly not grown on me over the years. I think my hatred for this movie has grown more just because I'm kind of disappointed in it. It's like, I know that they like tried to reimagine the series, do something a little different, but I think that's why they're missing the point. The first 8 Friday the 13th movies are great because they follow a similar formula, and it's just like fun. Like you kind of know what you're gonna see, and that's what I like about it. I want to see Jason running around the woods, you know, stabbing people, and like everything else is just fun most of the time in those movies. And this one, I don't even know what they're trying to do with it. There's scenes where like Jason has to possess other bodies, and he has to like throw up this like worm creature out of his mouth into other people's mouths, and it's just really weird. It's disgusting. There's other scenes in this movie that I just think are disgusting. It's one of these movies that I actually really don't like to watch much. So a lot of the times when I'm watching the Friday the 13th movies, I'll get done with 8 and I'll be like, ugh, I don't know if I really want to go on to the rest of the series. But I do watch this one most of the time when I'm having a Friday the 13th marathon, because like I said, I did rent it a lot when I was a kid, but I think this is one of the worst. And in my opinion, a lot of people say they don't like Part 5 because it doesn't have Jason in it. This movie doesn't have Jason in it. You see Jason with his hockey mask like in the first 5 minutes of the movie, and the rest of the movie he like is possessing other people's bodies, so it's not even really Jason, even though it is. Just a very confusing and very stupid movie in my opinion. Jason Goes to Hell. And of course is Jason X, and this is the only Friday the 13th movie that I've ever seen in theaters, and I went and saw this with my friend Joel when it first came out. And I have to admit, I was pretty scared of this when I was watching it in theaters. We were both still pretty young at the time when we went and saw this, so. But I've always liked this one for that reason, but there's a while when I actually hated this movie, and this one was my least favorite because I thought it was stupid that they brought Jason into space. I remember when this first came out, I liked it. But then later on in high school, I hated this movie. I didn't want anything to do with it. It's kind of how I feel about Jason Goes to Hell now, but this one has actually grown on me over the years, mostly because it's the only one I've seen in theaters, and also just because I don't think it's that bad of a Friday the 13th movie. It kind of follows your basic slasher film. It's just in space, so it's kind of almost like one of the Alien movies, except instead of being an alien, it's Jason, and he's like a hybrid Jason with like metallic parts. It's just cheesy, stupid, but the movie like knows it's kind of being stupid and cheesy, so it doesn't take itself completely seriously, and in my opinion it's actually a fun movie to watch, a lot more fun to watch than Jason Goes to Hell. And of course, Freddy vs. Jason. which I remember this was a big deal when this movie came out. Me and all my friends were hyped about it, and I didn't see this in theaters, but I remember when this came out on VHS, I bought it like within the first week, and you know, I just remember this being a big deal because back in the late 90s, this whole idea of Freddy vs. Jason was hyped up in like comic books and action figures and toys. So it was kind of cool to actually see a movie get made out of it. Kind of the same deal with Alien vs. Predator, which it had been comic books and like toys before it actually became a movie. So I remember this being a big deal, and you know, looking back on it now, this is still a fun one to watch for the Friday 13th and for a Nightmare on Elm Street film. But I still don't think it's not, you know, it's not even close to as cool and as fun as the like originals. But it's still fun to watch, and I think it's one of the better fighting movies because they actually really do have some good fights in here, Freddy and Jason. So you know, this one's also fun to watch, but it's just not really one of my favorites. And then last here is Friday the 13th, the remake, and this is the killer cut, which you can get for like $3 brand new anywhere. And you know, I've said in my other videos, I'm not the biggest fan of remakes, especially newer remakes, older remakes. Most of them are fine with me. You know, I've listed it before. Some of the best examples of remakes are Scarface, David Cronenberg's The Fly, John Carpenter's The Thing. Just some of the best horror films in general, and they just happen to be remakes also. But this, I've only seen this once or twice, and I wasn't even paying really good attention. But from what I remember, it's just what you expect from, you know, a new horror movie. It took a lot of the same, you know, it ripped off a lot of moments from the first 3 Friday the 13th films, and you know, it had some decent scenes. I remember a couple scenes that were, you know, fun to watch in this, but you know, my opinion on remakes is just most of them really don't need to be made, and this one again I think was mostly just cashing in on the name of the series. But it's good to see another Friday the 13th film, so I don't want to be that way about it. The more Friday the 13th films that get made and put out, you know, the happier I am. I love to see these films come out because whenever a new one comes out, they throw a bunch of stuff in stores about the old one, so it's always fun to see a new Friday the 13th movie come out. So this is, you know, for being a remake, it's still cool to see new Friday the 13th films get made, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So that was the entire Friday the 13th collection, and I hope you guys liked the video and give it a thumbs up or leave a comment if you did. And again, thanks for watching.